Mr. James Selfe. Over to you, Mmusi.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody, and good afternoon to fellow South Africans. It begs saying that I think we should have reshuffled Balega Mbete, but I add my word to those to thank you for your time, understanding where we are as a nation. We find ourselves in very extreme and unique times in South Africa. Certainly not in the history of my own political career, and as consulting with colleagues, have we ever seen a time such as this one. I think it bears sharing the fact that it's important that we keep the focus on what are some of the things that this nation needs to go through and what we need to achieve. I also want to, before I proceed, to send again and reiterate our deep condolences to the Kathrada family. I think the values that Ahmed Kathrada represents for South Africa, the value of non-racialism, the value of selflessness and service to people, are values that are fast diminishing and usher in an era where, as we have seen, a captured movement. And now the task before us is, how do we build a movement? And that will take South Africa in the direction of a prosperous nation for all. And that's the job that I have, and that's the job that the Democratic Alliance is committed to. It goes without saying that the Federal Executive then met today at a sitting in Cape Town. We have, dealing with the first matter, made a decision that as a party, what has been a very difficult decision, to institute formal disciplinary actions against Ms. Helen Zille, following recommendations presented to the party's Federal Legal Commission. This has not been an easy decision to take. Ms. Zille is a former leader of the Democratic Alliance. She's the Premier of the Western Cape. She's contributed immensely to the project of South Africa and the growth and success of the party I have the privilege to lead over the last decade. In the course of her life, she's consistently fought oppression and discrimination. And noting all of that, as tough the decision is, it is my job as leader of the DA to grow the party and advance the project of a non-racial South Africa and a prosperous democracy. Nothing is more important to this particular project, and no one particular individual is bigger than it. I must protect the project and cannot tolerate any action or behavior by any person which seeks to undermine or harm it. And it is my belief, certainly having read the report, that the sessions put before us require further action and disciplinary action. The charge against Ms. Zille is that she allegedly violated the party's federal constitution by acting in a manner that has brought the party into disrepute. A formal disciplinary hearing will now be instituted in order to come to a finding. Today's decision follows a series of tweets by Ms. Zille published on the 16th of March 2017, which sought to communicate her experience and impressions following a week-long visit to Singapore. As party leader, I referred Ms. Zille to the Federal Legal Commission on the 16th of March 2017 for an investigation in order for that body to determine whether the public assertions by Ms. Zille amounted to a prima facie evidence of misconduct in terms of the federal constitution. The Federal Legal Commission, in its report to the Federal Executive, confirms that there is a case for Ms. Zille to answer, and therefore the Federal Executive has decided to proceed with disciplinary action. It's through this process Ms. Zille will remain in her current position as Premier of the Western Cape. It must equally be made clear that this matter is not strictly confined to the series of tweets by Ms. Zille. Since then, the matter has developed further. Therefore, the initial referral was supplemented on the 22nd of March 2017 to include references to a series of comments made publicly and on social media that have exacerbated and amplified the original tweet. In particular, the FLC will now determine if Ms. Zille has breached the following provisions of the DA's federal constitution. 2.5.4.1, that publicly opposes the party's principles or repeatedly opposes published party policies, except or through the appropriate party structures. 2.5.4.2, deliberately acts in a manner in which impacts negatively on the image or performance of the party. 2.5.4.5, brings the good name of the party into disrepute or harms the interests of the party. As party leader, I have confidence in the independence and institutional strengths of our internal structures and mechanisms, and will await the outcome arrived at by the disciplinary actions and whatever they may be. The Democratic Alliance is a party, and I champion these values, is a party committed to institutional democracy and due process. And we're committed to the principle of the rule of law. It then must be highlighted that everybody is equal before the party's constitution, and that in every case, due process will be followed. This naturally places limitations on what can be said about the details of this case in public. The FLC is not a body controlled by me or by the federal executive. It is indeed a panel of independently minded, legally qualified individuals who must hear the evidence and recommend a decision. Notwithstanding this internal matter, I'd like to make it abundantly clear that as a party we're committed and resolute in our mission towards 2019. That mission is to build this movement of South Africans from all races committed to making sure that we bring an accountable government that serves the people of this country. That we will not be deterred away from that vision. It is one of a non-racial organization that serves under a constitution and ultimately ensures that we grow our economy so that more South Africans can be able to find work. In these extraordinary times in our nations, it's become quite clear that we're running fast out of time to save our country from the clutches of what is now a Zuma administration, different to that was brought forward in our South Africa by leaders such as Nelson Mandela. But now an organization led by Jacob Zuma and Gupta bosses. It is now more than ever that our commitment to removing President Jacob Zuma from power is more resolute. It is in this light, as we've communicated before, that we will be marching on Friday to the ANC's headquarters at Luthuli House, calling on the ANC to support our motion of no confidence in Jacob Zuma, which, as the Speaker has confirmed, received the request from us, but also has asked that I would hope it should be scheduled with the urgency it deserves, so that we can all express our vote and that we've all lost confidence in Jacob Zuma. I have also, to this effect, convened a meeting that will take place tomorrow of all opposition parties in Parliament. This meeting sets out, in fact, that we've got to work as a collective, as people who are interested in holding Jacob Zuma to account, that together we can meet and chart our way forward that will see the removing of Jacob Zuma from office. This meeting will take place tomorrow in Johannesburg. Fellow South Africans, that together, regardless of where you come from, who you are, it's time for all of us to stand up for the constitution of this country and everything that it represents. We must build a fair society in which every single South African, no matter what the circumstances of their birth, can live a life they truly value. And for this to occur, we must be resolute in our commitment for change, which will require that all of us as South Africans work together in building a nation with a shared future that we all dream of. And it is indeed possible. I've always maintained that the challenges of South Africa are not insurmountable. And at a time where our nation finds itself asking, where is the hope? What is the power? I wish to say this. That last year South Africans went to the polls and voted for change. The power remains always in our hands. One man cannot hold all 58 million of us hostage. And it is again that moment, as we proved and has been proven again, that prior to 1994, the people took power in their hands. It's again that time. That's why we are announcing mass action that will start on Friday and will coordinate across the country with many more South Africans to ensure that more people are conscious that the destiny of this nation lies in all of our hands. We continue our work in Parliament to make sure Jacob Zuma is removed. But ultimately, it is us, the people, who will triumph. And I believe there's no greater moment than now. And to me, as difficult as this time is, it inspires a deep sense of hope that we can again as a nation, regardless of what color of our skins are, rise together to charter a new way forward for all of us as a people. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mmusi. I would be happy to take your questions. We'll take two at a time. Please just let us know your name and which media house you come from. Marion and Graham. Sorry.
Marion Merton, Daily Maverick. A couple of clarifications on the DC. Who sits on the legal commission and what time frames are you looking at? And perhaps you could elaborate on this Friday march to the Tuli House. The DA has marched to the Tuli House before. It didn't go very well. The DA also marched to Cosatu House. It didn't go that well either. Why are you quite insistent on that? You do not have the support of other political parties at Parliament, like the EFF and others. And why would you pursue a tactic that in previous occasions has caused the ANC to step back from its own internal machinations and unite and come out stronger than ever before? Surely that's not the way to go. On this mass mobilization, is the DA going it alone? Why are you not connecting with other organizations? Or is that in the making? Thank you.
Graham?
Hi, Graham Rodman, Hartford News. Just also a point of clarity on the time frames for the disciplinary proceedings. When is that going to be happening? And then secondly, there's also an investigation, as I understand it, into Patricia de Lille and Sean August here in the city of Cape Town. Any update regarding that and the alleged leaking of party documents? We still haven't heard anything from that in some time. So just those two questions.
Right. Thank you.
Should I take those two or
Just two.
take?
Okay, one more.
Okay. The lady Stusa from ENCA. So I just wanted to find out, with the disciplinary process, what are the possible outcomes for the charges that are being, put against Mrs. Zuma?
Sure. I think, James, you can deal with that. Let me speak to Marianne, because you raised some very important questions about timeframes, and I think a few people have. Our Federal Legal Commission follows its own institutional discipline. It is not in my interest, nor in the interest of the DA, for this matter to drag on for a long time. But I'm also equally interested in ensuring that justice is done, that all sides get to put their cases forward. So as you know, it requires the appropriate availability of counsel. All of that process will unfold, and it is obviously in our interest for us to get through it. But the fact of the matter is that it will continue, and I hope, hopefully it will get done as soon as possible. I can't prescribe a time as to when it should be. But the second point you raise is about this march on Friday. You know, we put the charges to Jacob Zuma around corruption, racketeering, money laundering, that amounted to 783 charges of corruption. People were like, why do you do that? And why do you permit for that situation when you have to say, why does the ANC allow him to carry on? And the ANC came out again, united and sought to protect. Then people ask me the question, why are you moving a motion of no confidence? Because I felt at that point, even last year, in the anniversary of the Constitutional Court judgment last year, where they said Jacob Zuma had in fact violated the Constitution, we went to Parliament and said, vote this man out, and the ANC united. I think the theme here that we must all learn is not to make the assumption that Jacob Zuma is somewhat exceptional to the ANC. We must learn the lesson as a people of this country that Jacob Zuma is an outcome of the ANC, and it is the ANC that seeks to protect him. So we mustn't, I think it's important that when we go, this march will be peaceful. I've always maintained that we march peacefully. And this time around, the uniqueness says, let those members of parliament in the ANC who believes they want to put South Africa first come with us. Jacob Zuma was first the president of the ANC before he's the president of the Republic. He gets elected the president of the Republic by the majority the ANC gives him in parliament. Therefore, it is natural and correct that the starting point must be, as president of the ANC, are you going to defend him, or are you in fact going to come out and say, we want to put South Africa first? I thought what came out of yesterday was a profound statement to say, the ANC has to choose Jacob Zuma or the people of this country, and I want to give them that option on Friday. Choose South Africa. And that's why our march will proceed in a peaceful manner as best as possible in this way. I think the other two questions are about those.
Yes, well, thank you very much indeed. Just who sits on the Federal Legal Commission? There are about 30 members of the Federal Legal Commission, 30. And what practically happens is that in the case of the disciplinary committee, a panel of 3 of those members is made up, and those 3 people sit then and hear the matter. If the matter goes to an appeal, the appeal is heard by 5 members of that commission. So I don't know all the members, but it's a fairly big panel from which to choose. In terms of possible outcomes, the requisite section of the DA's federal constitution is 11.7.1, and if a committee finds one guilty, it can recommend that the membership of that person be terminated, that the membership of that person be suspended for a specified period, the member be suspended from any position in the party or from holding any position in future for a specified period, or that all or any of the privileges of a member as stated in the Constitution be suspended, that the member be admonished, that the member be fined an amount not exceeding the amount determined by the Federal Council from time to time, and that amount at the moment is 50,000 rands, and that the member be ordered to render a period of community service included but not limited to service in the community or to the party. So those are the requisite. As far as Patricia de Lille and Sean August is concerned, I understand from the chairperson of the Federal Legal Commission that that matter is still proceeding, that there are clashes in terms of when counsel is available, but the matter is still current.
Thanks, Jace. We'll take 3 more. Joseph, Annika, and you.
Yes, Joseph Mmusi from SABC. Mr. Maimane, on the issue of Ms. Zille, as a political party that espouses values of liberalism, is the idea of not allowing someone to express their views freely not one that is going to stifle debate in the party? Because if someone feels one way about one issue that differs from another person, that means that that person cannot actually espouse that particular view. Whether it's right or wrong, whether it's popular or not popular. I mean, it is Ms. Zilla's given view that things are in a particular way. Why are you taking action against someone for expressing a different view from yours?
Okay. Thank you, Annika from ENCA. To any of the panel, actually, sorry, to Mr. Maimane, you said it was a difficult decision to make. Do you mean on a personal level, and if so, why so, how so? And if on a party level, could you give us more details, please? And have you been approached by, or have you approached any ANC MPs with regards to a possible motion of no confidence vote when Parliament comes back from recess? Thank you.
MC?
Ms. Maimane, I wanted to know how you read, or like having read his remarks at her press conference that you just watched. I mean, what does it indicate and where she might see? What are the chances might be on bringing the motion sooner rather than later? Also, I mean, I think you have said that there are ANC MPs who would be prepared to break ranks and vote with you. Could you give us an indication of how widespread you think that is? And then on Zilla, was a decision taken in complete isolation of political events, or is there a sense that you cannot, as you just did, say to people in the ANC, come with us, while somebody has made remarks about colonialism that will certainly be
Sorry, say that again?
I said, is there also, I mean, was it taken in complete isolation of political events of the last few days, or you've just called, which we on ANC members, to come with us in the march, vote with us in the National Assembly. Was there a sense that you would have less credibility if you didn't act against the Premier?
I think the last question that you raise and the question that Joseph raised is a very important one. Our party has always stood for the principle of freedom of speech. This case is not about freedom of speech. South Africans have, our party has always stood for South Africans from all walks of life, black, white, Indian, colored. We're the only party that can grow in Msunduzi as we did last week, as we would in any other community in the country. This is not the debate. It's not a choice between one race or another, or what the view expressed there. That's not the debate. So, Joseph, to your point, we hold still true to the principle. People can express a view. The question is, as a political party, does that view do damage or harm to the interests of the organization? Which is what this says. And I think you can agree, whilst all of us are as we sit here today, have the right to express a view, whatever that view is. But we can all appreciate that when you have a particular role, a political role, a leader in an organization, and I put myself in that example, there may be certain views that may be of detriment to the particular project I'm holding. Therefore, there's a particular restriction upon that because I'm always interested in forging the relationships between black and white South Africans and building an organization that represents all South Africans. So I think we must be clear what we are discussing here and what we are dealing with. And so in answer to the question whether I felt it was going to be, the decision is actually quite simple in other instances. You can see anywhere it says our values have always stood for freedom, fairness, and opportunity. In this instance, if there was another member of the DA, and a councillor, a member of parliament, a premier, a mayor, if there was a case that they needed to answer, the fair thing to do is to allow them to answer the case. And in this instance, we've referred it to the disciplinary committee because I believe there is preliminary evidence that suggests that there is a strong case to be made here. And it's on that basis that we make the decision. It's also on the basis of the fact that I think materially I've got to build an organization that reflects all South Africans. So in that instance, I think Premier Zille, as well as anybody else, will have the right to answer before that. Annika, you are correct when you say it was difficult in the sense that it is personal. I have respect for Premier Zille. She served this country with distinction. I think it would be incorrect to suggest that she hasn't. It would be also incorrect to draw conclusions to say she's racist or whatever the case is. That's not the person I know. So of course, every time you have to make tough decisions, they become difficult. But you have to, because I still stand for this DA. I have to fight for the organization, and no one individual is bigger than the organization. I have to stand up to say, if in my view there's evidence that says you've contradicted something we stand for, it must be investigated. And charges must be preferred in that regard, so that we make it quite clear that that view is not something that I, as leader of the DA, can stand for. So that's on that basis that we've got to take strong decisions and take action going forward. And I think that's why I still maintain that that's the route we must go. When it comes to ANC MPs, look, many of them have already made contact with us. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say these are them. That would be unfair, not right. Neither am I going to say this is how many of them there are. Unfair, not right. We're on a journey here of a very important political project where people who hold the view that South Africa must come first, ahead of any specific family, where those are the Guptas, ahead of any specific, in this instance, political party, that we can come together and say, we stand on this issue. And I want to give them the right to work through, and that's why I'm working even with opposition parties to say, how do we work together to, in fact, make sure South Africa thrives through this process. So at this point in time, we want to allow the ANC MPs, if they need consultation, to go through that particular process. And those who have made contact with us, we have always maintained, I'll uphold their confidentiality, and we'll proceed. Where the matter will be revealed is when we come out to vote. And in fact, I'm very fascinated by making sure that when people come out to vote, they must then come and express publicly their stance that either they choose Jacob Zuma or they choose the people of South Africa. And it's well within their rights that they can continue to do that.
Right, we'll take one last
So
round.
I think James had a
sorry,
process
sorry.
question.
No, it's just about, I think, MC, you asked about whether we support an earlier motion of no confidence.
No, I asked what is your reading of what the speaker said
Oh,
at
yes,
the
yes,
press
yes.
conference in
Well, she used a lot of words and said very little, as far as I could tell. So I wasn't quite sure why she came back from Bangladesh in a hurry. Maybe her prospects of the ANC presidency were slipping away.
And having followed a little bit about that press conference, to be quite honest with you, Baleka Mbete was also found at last year's Constitutional Court ruling to say that she'd violated the oath of office. Baleka tried even in this press conference to defend whether she's biased towards Zuma. Of course she's biased towards Zuma. We've seen it time and time and again. And even in the way when you approach it in question and answer session, she will shield the president. And she's acted in a manner that does not seek, as a Speaker of the National Assembly, to protect the Constitution of the Republic. Ministers sometimes don't even answer questions, and Baleka is comfortable with that. So you ask me the question, what is the basis of her decision in this week? When she means consultation, what she's asking is for instruction and direction from Jacob Zuma. And I really believe we've taken a stance against Baleka Mbete. I think she is not an unbiased speaker. She's partial, and she's part of the problem in South Africa. So even in answer to the question, why do you want to deal with just Jacob Zuma? Jacob Zuma is not an exception in the ANC. is part of the collective, and therefore even Baleka Mbete is in that collective.
All right, one last round. Paul, Apure, and Denise.
Hi, Paul Becker from Bloomberg. Just quickly, your review application against the statement to shuffle the index file there. Secondly, will the DA support a call for a secret ballot on the motion of confidence against the President? And then, just finally, I just want to understand if the Federal Executive will in total agreement or complete agreement over the FLC.
I want to know why did the party choose not to suspend the Premier from her position, because in the course of doing a job, the issue keeps coming up, and she keeps speaking about it and defending her position. That was the case last week at the provincial legislature, where she even went further. So I want to understand why you think we should not suspend it. And then secondly, there were members of the DA in the Western Cape legislature who had defended her during that debate. Are you going to be anyway looking at taking action against them, or are you just going to let them go?
Denise?
Denise Williams from the Citizen. Just want to find out, the meeting was this morning. When have you notified, when did you notify the Premier of this, and how did you notify? Was it in writing, or how did when did
Notify
you
her of the meeting or
of
the
the
outcome?
outcome.
Of the outcome.
Okay. And secondly, when will the disciplinary hearing start? Have we got some sort of time frame? Are we looking at sort of this week? Do we need to convene first and then sort of call her? And finally, you know, we're calling for. There's already sort of with the Premier's this disciplinary hearing going on or going forward. Now we're also calling on the ANC to withdraw its leader. So it seems a little bit confused that people might think that because there's also internal struggles in the DA at the moment, that we're also having issues with the ANC.
So I'm a bit confused. No, it doesn't. I think James will talk about the review application and the FLC process, Paul, in this regard. I think those were the two questions. Our review application and the FLC.
The FLC and on the
Secret ballot.
support of the secret.
Look, at this point in time, we've made this discussion about the secret ballot over and over again. That requires a separate rules process. In this instance, it requires individuals, members of parliament, to find their spine. And I think we must all come out and be bold at the motion of no confidence. Because to try and have that debate now whether we need a secret ballot or not is actually counter what we need to do. We've been down that route before. There's a court ruling on the matter. To fight about it is actually, I think, to me, a distraction. What we should rather be focused on is to say, I, Mmusi Maimane, vote to say Jacob Zuma must be removed. And so should anybody else have the right to do so. So I think that must be the focus. On the question of I'm not going out to charge the whole organization. Members have expressed themselves in different ways on this issue. The matter is now sub judice, because now it's entered into a very strong legal process. So from this point on, we won't engage in, if you like, extensive discussions about it as to what will then in fact happen, etc., etc. So I think those two matters stand. James, I'm not sure if you want to cover the question about the Western Cape or the Premier and when she was communicated to. James chairs our federal executive, and so the communications will come from him.
Thank you. Yes, just in terms of the review application, our legal team worked throughout the weekend. Our research department worked throughout the weekend. We hope to be able to serve papers sometime in the course of tomorrow. But as you will know, the issues there are fairly complex. And as Judge Rogers said on Friday, this is a very high bar that we've got to reach. We have to prove that the decision to reformulate the cabinet was substantively irrational or actuated by mala fides. So we are going to have to do a lot of research and a lot of trawling through what people have said and what people have done over the last couple of years while they've been public office bearers. So as I say, I hope to do it as soon as possible. It might happen tomorrow. If it doesn't, it'll happen Tuesday. You asked whether this was a unanimous decision. It was very near unanimous. As far as suspending the Premier is concerned, in our party we suspend members ordinarily when they are going to interfere with an investigation or intimidate witnesses. This is not the case in this present investigation, so there's no particular need to do so. And in answer to when we will notify Ms. Ziller, well, as soon as this press conference is over, the communication will go to her. As far as when the DC will start, it is governed by the rules of the Federal Legal Commission. I think, if my memory serves me correctly, 5 working days' notice have to be given to a member that they are being investigated and that they have a charge to answer, and that communication will go out probably still today.
All right, thank you very much, everyone, and do enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
And goes.
And with me,
This final should be short.
Sorry, just a quick one.
Sure.
Has Helen Ziller been banned from social media?
No.